My beloved child, something quiet has already begun, and you didn't even notice the exact moment it arrived. Not with noise, not with urgency, but with a presence so gentle that it almost feels like a memory rather than a message. Stay here for a moment, because what you are about to feel was never meant to rush you. There is a softness around you right now. Can you sense it? Not in the air, not in the room, but somewhere deeper, where thoughts slow down and something more meaningful begins to rise. This isn't imagination. This is the space where messages find you when your heart is finally ready to receive them. And there is something she has been holding, for longer than you realize. Not words spoken loudly, not something written or left behind in a way you could easily find. No, this was always meant to reach you differently, through timing, through stillness, through a moment exactly like this one. Pause here, because this part matters. You may have felt it before, a sudden warmth when you were alone, a memory that appeared without warning, or a feeling that someone was near even when no one was there. You brushed it off, told yourself it was just your mind trying to fill a silence. But what if that silence was never empty? What if it was waiting? There's a reason this message is reaching you now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but in this exact moment when something inside you has softened just enough to listen. Don't skip this feeling, it carries more than words, because she never stopped wanting to tell you something, not once. Even when time moved forward, even when life kept pulling you into different directions, even when you thought that chapter had quietly closed. For her, it never did. It simply changed form, waiting for the right doorway to open again. And now, it has. But notice this, the message is not rushing toward you. It's unfolding, slowly, carefully, almost as if it knows that if it arrives too quickly, you might miss the depth of what it carries. So let it come the way it was always meant to. There was always something she wished you understood, something simple, yet so deeply important that it could never be forced into a single moment. It had to grow inside you, like a realization that feels like your own. Have you ever wondered why certain thoughts return again and again? Not random thoughts, but the same feeling, the same question, the same quiet pull that doesn't fully leave? That's not coincidence. That's where her message has been living. And right now, it's closer than ever to becoming clear. But before it fully reveals itself, something inside you needs to shift just slightly. Not dramatically, not forcefully, just enough for you to stop searching outward, and begin noticing what's already been placed within you. Because the truth is, she never wanted to overwhelm you with answers. She wanted you to feel them. That's why this message is reaching you through a presence you can trust, a guiding force that doesn't push, doesn't demand, doesn't rush, only gently brings what is already meant for you, closer, step by step. And here's the part most people miss. The message isn't just about what she wanted to say, it's about what you were always meant to understand. Take a breath, slowly, and notice what changes when you stop trying to figure everything out. Something begins to settle, doesn't it? A quiet clarity, not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. That's where it begins. Because what she always wanted you to know was never hidden from you. It was simply waiting for you to see it without doubt. You might feel it now, just beneath your thoughts, like a truth that has been patiently sitting there all along. And yet, there's still more. Don't move too quickly past this, because the next part is where everything starts to come together in a way you didn't expect. There were moments, small ones, that you almost forgot. Words she said casually, a look she gave you when you weren't paying full attention, a silence that felt meaningful, even if you didn't understand it at the time. Those weren't ordinary moments. They were fragments, pieces of something she couldn't fully express back then, not because she didn't want to, but because some messages are too deep to be understood instantly. They need time, and distance, and a certain kind of readiness. And now, you're standing in that readiness. Strange, isn't it? How something from the past can suddenly feel present again, not as memory, but as meaning. And this is where it shifts, because the message is no longer just around you, it's beginning to move through you. You may notice it as a feeling you can't fully explain, a calmness that doesn't match your surroundings, or even a quiet emotional pull that makes you pause without knowing why. Don't ignore that. Something important is waiting right there. And if you stay with it, just a little longer, you'll begin to realize something that changes the way you see everything that came before this moment. She wasn't trying to be heard in the way you expected. She was trying to be understood in a way that lasts. That's why this message didn't come earlier. That's why it didn't arrive in a clear, direct form. Because if it had, you might have listened, but you wouldn't have felt it. And this is meant to be felt. Let that sink in. Because what comes next is where her message begins to take shape in a way that feels almost impossible to ignore. There is something she always saw in you, something you may have overlooked, or even doubted at times. Not because it wasn't there, but because you were too close to it to recognize its value. She noticed it, quietly, consistently, even when you didn't. And that is a part of what she wanted you to know. Not in a way that pressures you, not in a way that overwhelms you, but in a way that gently reminds you of who you've always been beneath everything else. You're beginning to feel it now, aren't you? That slight shift, that quiet awareness. It's not random. It's the message unfolding, piece by piece. But don't rush to complete it, because the next part, the part that brings everything into clarity, it's closer than you think. Stay here, just a little longer, because what she always wanted you to know is about to feel unmistakably real. Something just shifted again, not outside, but within you, as if a door you didn't even know existed has quietly opened. You didn't force it, you didn't search for it, and yet, here it is. That's how you know this moment matters. Let this settle, because what's arriving now is softer, but deeper. There's a reason your heart feels slightly different than it did before, not heavier, not lighter, just aware. Almost like something is gently placing pieces together inside you without asking for your effort. Stay with that feeling, don't move away from it too quickly, because this is where her message begins to take a clearer shape, not as a voice you hear, but as a truth you recognize. You see, she never wanted to leave you with questions, even if it felt that way at times, even if silence made things unclear, even if there were things left unsaid that stayed with you longer than you expected. That wasn't the ending. It was a pause that only now is beginning to make sense. Think about this. Have you ever noticed how certain realizations don't come when you chase them, but when you finally stop? When you release the need to understand everything, suddenly, something deeper begins to reveal itself. That's exactly where you are right now. And she knew, somehow, that one day, you would reach this space. A space where you no longer need loud explanations, because quiet understanding becomes enough. Don't skip this part, because what comes next is something you've been closer to than you think. There was always one thing she hoped you would never forget, even if everything else faded, even if time carried you far from those moments. This one truth was meant to stay, not as a memory, as a knowing. But here's where it becomes real. You were never unseen, not in the way you feared, not in the moments where you felt misunderstood, or when you thought certain parts of you went unnoticed. She saw more than you realized, even the parts you didn't show. And that matters more than you think, because sometimes, We spend so much time wondering if we were understood, that we forget to notice where we already were. Pause, just for a second. Let that truth sit with you. Something inside you is responding to it, quietly, but clearly. That's not coincidence. That's recognition. And this is where the message deepens. She didn't just see you. She believed in something within you that you were still learning to trust. Not in a loud, obvious way, not with constant reminders, but in the way she looked at you when you weren't paying attention, in the way she listened, in the way she stayed present even when words were few. Those moments carried more than you knew. They carried meaning that is only now becoming visible. And maybe, just maybe, that's why this message feels so different. Because it's not telling you something new. It's reminding you of something that was always true. Stay a little longer, because this next realization is quiet, but powerful. You were never meant to carry doubt the way you did. Not about yourself. Not about your worth. Not about the impact you've had, even in ways you couldn't see. And she knew that. She saw it in moments you dismissed. In actions you thought were small. In the way you showed up, even when you didn't feel strong. That's what stayed with her. Not the things you worried about. Not the imperfections you focused on. But the essence of who you are when you're simply being yourself. And now, that understanding is finding its way back to you. Can you feel it? That subtle shift again, a little more grounded, a little more certain. That's the message settling deeper. But there's still something she hasn't fully revealed. Something she always wanted you to feel, not just understand. And this is where everything begins to come together in a way that feels almost undeniable. Because what she carried for you, it never faded. Not over time. Not with distance. Not even in silence. It remained, steady, quiet, constant. And that's what makes this moment different. Because you're not just remembering. You're reconnecting with something that never truly left. Let that realization breathe for a moment. Because once it fully settles, you won't see things the same way again. And there's one more piece, one final layer that brings everything into clarity in a way you didn't expect. It's closer than it seems. And when it arrives, it won't feel like a message anymore. It will feel like truth. Stay here. Because what she always wanted you to know is about to become unmistakably clear. And just like that, something inside you becomes still, not empty, not distant, but deeply present, as if everything has been gently guiding you toward this exact point without you realizing it. Stay with this stillness. Because this is where the message finally reveals what it was always becoming. There's no rush now. No need to search, no need to question, because what you're about to feel doesn't arrive as something unfamiliar. It arrives as something you've known, quietly, all along. Take a breath, and notice this. The feeling you've been carrying, the one you couldn't fully explain, the one that came and went without warning. It wasn't confusion. It was connection. Soft. Patient, and always there beneath everything else. And now, it's no longer hidden. Because what she always wanted you to know, was never complicated. It was never something distant or difficult to understand. It was simple, but powerful enough to stay with you for a lifetime. She wanted you to know that you were always enough. Not when you achieve more. Not when you become something else. Not when everything in your life feels perfectly aligned. But exactly as you are. In the quiet moments. In the uncertain ones. Even in the times you doubted yourself the most. You were never lacking. You were never behind. You were never unseen. Pause here, let this land fully. Because this is the part where everything shifts. All those moments where you questioned your worth, all the times you wondered if you were doing enough, being enough, or moving forward in the right way. She never saw you through that lens. She saw you through truth. Through a clarity that didn't change based on circumstances or mistakes or temporary doubts. And that truth has been waiting for you to accept it, not from the outside, but from within yourself. Stay till the end of this feeling, because something important is unfolding right here. You see, her message was never meant to fix you. It was meant to free you. Free you from the quiet weight you've been carrying without even realizing it. The constant need to measure yourself, to question yourself, to wonder if you're enough in the eyes of others. You were never meant to live that way, and she knew that. That's why this message is reaching you now, when you're ready to hear it not as words, but as truth. You don't need to become someone else to be worthy. You don't need to prove anything to be seen. You don't need to chase validation to feel complete, because everything you've been searching for externally was always resting within you. And she saw that before you did. Let that realization settle deeper. Because this is where something quietly transforms. The way you see yourself, the way you carry your thoughts, the way you move forward from this moment. It begins to shift, not dramatically, but permanently. You may not notice it all at once, but something inside you has already changed. A small, steady clarity has taken its place. And from here, everything begins to feel just a little more aligned, a little more certain, a little more like you. And here's the part that brings everything full circle. She never wanted you to hold on to sadness. She never wanted you to feel like something was missing. She wanted you to continue, to grow, to experience life fully, without carrying the weight of what you thought was unfinished. Because from her perspective, nothing was unfinished. Everything that mattered was already there. And now, you can feel that too, not as a memory, not as something distant, but as a quiet truth that stays with you, no matter where you go from here. And maybe that's why this message didn't come all at once. Maybe that's why it unfolded slowly, gently, piece by piece. So that you could feel every part of it, not just hear it. Because when something is felt this deeply, it doesn't fade. It becomes a part of you. So as this moment settles, as this clarity becomes something steady within you, notice how different everything feels now. Not because the world changed, but because something inside you did. And that's where her message completes itself. Not with an ending, but with a quiet continuation. Because what she always wanted you to know is something you will carry forward, effortlessly, naturally, without needing to hold on to it. It's already within you, and it always was. Stay in this feeling, just a little longer. Because this isn't something you're meant to leave behind. This is something you're meant to move forward with. And now, there is nothing left to search for, yet something even deeper begins to unfold. Not because anything was missing, but because when truth finally settles, it creates space for something new to rise. Stay with this moment, don't move away too quickly, because what you're feeling right now is rare. It's the kind of clarity that doesn't come from outside voices, but from a quiet alignment within you. Notice how everything feels, softer, not weaker, just lighter. As if a weight you didn't even realize you were carrying has slowly slipped away without effort. That's what happens when something true finally reaches you in the way it was meant to. And this is where her presence shifts again. Not as something you're trying to reach, but as something that gently walks beside you. You may not see it, you may not hear it in words, but you'll begin to notice it in the way your thoughts feel calmer, in the way your decisions feel clearer, in the way certain doubts no longer hold the same power over you. That's not coincidence. That's connection, continuing in a new form. Pause for a second. Because this part matters more than it seems. You are not meant to hold on to this message as something fragile, something you might lose if you don't think about it constantly. No. You're meant to live it, to move through your days with this quiet understanding resting naturally within you, without forcing it, without questioning it. Because once something becomes truth inside you, it doesn't need to be held on to. It holds you. Let that settle. Because this is where everything becomes beautifully simple. She never wanted to be remembered only through the past. She wanted to be felt in your present, in your strength, in your calm, in the way you begin to trust yourself more than you did before, and most importantly, in the way you allow yourself to feel whole, without needing anything else to complete you. That was always her wish. Not for you to stay in what was, but for you to fully step into what is. And now, you're doing exactly that. You didn't force this moment. You didn't chase this realization. It found you, because you were ready. And that's what makes it real. Take a breath, slowly. And notice how there's no urgency left, no pressure, no unfinished feeling, just a quiet sense of knowing that everything is exactly where it needs to be. That's the message, fully received. But here's something even more beautiful. This isn't the end of anything. It's a beginning, but not the kind that feels overwhelming or uncertain. A beginning that feels steady, natural. Like stepping into something that was always waiting for you, without needing to be announced. From this moment forward, things will start to feel different in small, almost unnoticeable ways. You'll respond instead of react. You'll trust instead of doubt. You'll feel instead of question. And slowly, without even trying, you'll begin to see yourself the way she always did. Not as someone who needed to become more, but as someone who already is. Let that truth stay with you. Not as something you repeat, but as something you live. Because that's where its real power is. And if there's one final thing to carry with you from this moment, it's this. You were always deeply valued, even in the moments you couldn't see it. You were always understood, even when you felt alone in your thoughts. You were always supported, in ways that didn't need to be seen to be real. And now, you don't need to wonder about that anymore. It's clear. It's steady. It's yours. Stay here, just a little longer. Because the feeling you have right now, it's not something temporary. It's something you've just remembered how to return to. And you can come back to it, anytime. Without effort. Without doubt. Without searching. Because it was never outside of you. It was always here. Waiting, quietly, for you to feel it again.